Right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into a really fascinating story from 17th century Assam.
Yeah.
And that is the story of Azan Pir,
Right.
who is also known as Ajan Fakir. And for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at some excerpts from a YouTube podcast script called 12 a.m. And they did an episode on this topic as well.
Right.
And I think our mission today should be to try to understand, like, who was this guy?
Yeah.
Like, what were his key teachings?
Right.
What were the challenges he faced? And, why is his impact still felt even today?
Yeah, I think those are all great questions, and I think our source material will give us some really some good answers for that.
Okay, perfect. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So I guess first, just to set the stage a little bit, you're talking about 17th century Assam.
Right.
Like, what was going on back then?
Yeah, so the 17th century in Assam was like a really dynamic period. There was a lot happening politically and culturally.
Okay.
You had the powerful Ahom kingdom, which had ruled the region for centuries, and they were known for their strong military and administration.
What?
But at the same time, you also had all these different cultural influences coming in from other parts of India and beyond.
Right.
You had Hinduism, Buddhism, and even some early traces of Islam already present in the region.
Okay, so it was already like a diverse place even back then.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like a melting pot of different cultures and traditions.
Right.
And into this mix enters Azan Pir.
Right.
And, like you mentioned, there's some debate about his exact origins. Some sources say he was from Baghdad, others say Yemen.
Right.
But what's clear is that he came to Assam with a specific mission, and that was to spread the teachings of Islam and to promote spiritual unity.
Okay, and where did he sort of set up shop?
So he settled in a place called Saraguri Chapori, which is near modern-day Sivasagar.
Okay.
And this area was like a major center of Ihom power at the time. So it was a strategic choice for him to be close to the heart of the kingdom.
Okay, so it sounds like it must have been pretty challenging for him at the beginning, coming into this new place with, different religious beliefs.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Ahom rulers at that time, particularly King Gadadhar Singha, they were pretty wary of newcomers, especially those who were spreading a different faith.
Right.
And so Azan Pir has definitely faced like a lot of resistance. There are stories of him being persecuted and even facing threats to his life.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it was. But like you said earlier, it really speaks to his faith and his perseverance that he didn't give up.
Right.
He remained committed to his mission.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about like what made his approach unique. Like, how was he spreading these teachings of Islam?
Right. So unlike some other preachers of his time, Azan Pir wasn't just focused on like the outward rituals of Islam.
Okay.
He was really more of a Sufi mystic.
Right.
And Sufism is all about like this direct personal experience of the divine. It's about cultivating inner purity and developing a deep love for God and all of creation.
Okay, and how did that sort of manifest in his teachings in Assam?
So one of the really interesting things about Azan Pir is that he used these devotional songs called Zikir and Zari.
Okay, I've heard of those, but I don't really know much about them.
Right, so Zikir and Zari, they're forms of Islamic devotional music.
Okay.
And they're often performed in a call and response style.
Okay.
And the lyrics are usually in praise of Allah, or they tell stories about the prophets, or they express like this deep longing for union with the divine.
Right.
But what Azan Pir did was he took these traditional Islamic forms, and he kind of like infused them with elements of Assamese culture and language.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so he created these like unique hybrid forms of music that really resonated with the local people.
Okay, so he was almost like blending these two worlds together.
Exactly. Yeah, he was creating like this bridge between Islamic spirituality and Assamese culture.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and these songs weren't just like entertainment, they were like powerful vehicles for spreading his message. They contained all these deep spiritual teachings about the oneness of God, the importance of love and compassion, and the need for inner transformation.
That's cool. So like people were basically getting these like spiritual lessons through music.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like a very accessible and engaging way to learn about Islam and Sufism.
Right. So not just like reading a book or listening to a lecture, but like actually experiencing it through music.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of why his message was so successful.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into like what were some of his core teachings.
Right. So at the heart of Azan Pir's message was this idea of love.
Okay.
Love for Allah, love for all of humanity, love for all of creation. He believed that love was the most powerful force in the universe.
Right.
And that it was the key to achieving spiritual enlightenment.
Okay.
He also emphasized the importance of unity, breaking down barriers between people of different faiths. He believed that at our core, we're all connected to the same divine source.
Right.
And that we should strive to live in harmony with each other.
And this is all back in the 17th century.
Exactly. Yeah. These were like very progressive ideas for his time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And, another really important aspect of his teachings was this emphasis on inner purity.
Okay.
He believed that true worship wasn't just about outward rituals or practices.
Right.
But it was about purifying your heart and cultivating sincerity and devotion.
Okay, so it's more about like the inner journey.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about transforming yourself from the inside out.
That's powerful. Okay, so it sounds like his message really resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah, it did.
We know that his influence spread across different communities.
Despite the initial resistance from the Ahom authorities,
right.
His teachings started to attract followers from all walks of life. Hindus, Muslims, indigenous community.
Wow, so it was really like transcending these religious boundaries.
Exactly, yeah. He was creating like this space for interfaith dialogue and understanding.
That's pretty incredible for that time period.
Yeah, it was.
But I imagine that this growing popularity probably also led to some more tensions with the authorities.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true.
Right.
As Azan Pir's influence grew, the rulers started to see him as more and more of a threat.
Right.
They feared that he was undermining their power and that he might be inciting rebellion.
Right.
And so eventually they decided to take action against him.
Right. And what happened?
So according to the stories, he was arrested and imprisoned.
Wow.
And tragically, he was also blinded.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a very brutal act. And it's a stark reminder of the kind of persecution that religious minorities often face throughout history.
Right. And it just shows that, even someone who's preaching peace and unity can still become a target of violence and oppression.
Exactly.
But even with all of that, like, his teachings continue to spread.
Yeah, that's right.
His followers remain dedicated to his message. And they continue to share his songs and his stories.
Right.
And so in a way, his blindness actually ended up amplifying his message.
Wow. How so?
Because it showed his followers that true faith and devotion can withstand even the most extreme forms of suffering.
That's a powerful lesson.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so then fast forward to today. Like, what is Azan Pir's legacy?
Well, his legacy is really profound.
Okay.
Even centuries after his death, he's still remembered as this like iconic figure in Assam.
Right.
He's revered by people of all faiths.
Okay.
And his teachings continue to inspire people to this day.
Okay.
His shrine, the Dargah in Sivasagar, is a major pilgrimage site. Yeah. People from all walks of life, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, they all come to pay their respects. Wow. So it's really become like a symbol of unity and interfaith harmony.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a testament to the power of his message.
That's amazing. So I guess if we try to sum up, what's the key takeaway from Azan Pir's story?
I think one of the key takeaways is that true faith is about so much more than just rituals and doctrines.
Right.
It's about character.
Okay.
It's about compassion. It's about how we treat each other.
Right.
Azan Pir's life is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, we can choose to respond with love and understanding.
Right.
And that we can build bridges instead of walls.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and I think that's a message that's more relevant than ever today.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that's so often divided by religion and ideology.
Exactly.
So here's a final thought for you, listener.
Okay.
We've been talking about how Azan Pir blended spiritual traditions and fostered unity back in the 17th century. What are some ways that you see similar bridges being built in our world right now? Are there individuals or organizations that are working to promote interfaith dialogue and understanding? Are there movements that are challenging us to look beyond our differences and see our common humanity?
Yeah.
I think those are all really important questions to consider.
I agree.
And I think Azan Pir's story can serve as a powerful inspiration as we continue to strive for a more just and compassionate world. All right. Well, that was a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it really was.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.